Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Big Bold You, a show that has been created for each and every one of you out there to help you play bigger in your life. And we want you to know the truth of how you do that. You do it by thinking bigger, all right? It's just that simple. You've got to think bigger first, and then you will start to act bigger. And we want you to understand that you've got to be bold, and that means you have to step out of your comfort zone. You've got to do things that you don't believe you can do, but you can do. We want to help inspire you to do those things so you can become the best version of you. I believe that we live in a world where there is a war between good and evil, and the only way evil wins is when good people like you and me and my incredible guest, when we just don't do enough because we're scared and we allow fear to stop us. So we're not going to let fear stop us. We are going to have a great guest on the show every Monday at 2 p.m. Central, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to welcome our guest today, Scott Stevens. I'm telling you, I wish we could go for 2 hours. Now I know why Joe Rogan
Right?
does these 3, 4, and 5 hour podcasts
Yeah, that's for
because
sure.
once you start a conversation that's so meaningful
Mm,
and can help people and change their lives,
right.
you don't want to stop.
No, and we could talk for days on this
I know we
subject.
can, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk. We're going to start talking
Yeah,
immediately.
right?
So Scott, I
Yes.
just want to say welcome so
Thank you. Thank
much,
you for having me.
and just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, where
Wow.
you are in your journey, and we're just going to jump right into this topic because the topic is how to heal yourself,
Yes.
and you can, and you
Yeah.
have.
Right. And so, yeah, I'll back up a little bit. And so, what happened was about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I woke up one day and, I'm young. I was 43 years old and I woke up and I couldn't get out of bed. I was in such pain that I was just tears coming down my eyes. I got chills thinking about it that day. I remember it so vividly. And I went to the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed me. Went to the ER, and they ran some blood or whatever, and they diagnosed me as having psoriatic arthritis, diabetes, and psoriasis. Which psoriasis is a skin condition. They call it an autoimmune disease, but it's a skin condition. And I was in such pain and so miserable and just overweight. And I knew that something had to happen.
Right.
Right. I had to take some kind of action because what I was doing up to that point has led me there.
Right. But the neat thing that is, I think, unusual for most people is you said to yourself, hold on, I'm responsible for where I am
Yeah.
right now. And not everybody is at that point in their
Yeah.
development to make that correlation that, hey,
Right.
I have diabetes, I've got this arthritis, which, I mean, listen, some people think if you live long enough, you're going to get these diseases, but not necessarily so.
Yeah, and I was just my health was incredibly just on the downside, right? I was severely overweight. I didn't want to admit it. Okay, I had been using nicotine. I didn't smoke, but I dipped.
Right.
I started dipping when I was like in 13 or 15 years old. So I had been dipping for 30 something years,
Right.
right? And I had tried to quit before, but it's that old adage of, it's hard. It's, I'd always keep an extra one around in case I got a craving for
Right.
it. I never really allowed myself to try,
Right.
because of the easy way out.
Well, and you hadn't really made a decision
Yeah.
that you were going to stop.
That's what it comes down to, right?
Right, right.
It may have taken me 12 years or 15 years to make the decision to finally get my health right.
Right.
Or to think about making the decision, but it only took 1 second to make the decision. The minute I made the decision, Jen,
Right,
the
but-
minute I made the decision, I changed.
So, what was it that you said to yourself, I have to make the decision?
Well, I actually became fearful of the future. I was seeing the future in my mind, and I could see where my health was leading. I could see the demise of myself, and I knew that if I didn't make a change, my life expectancy probably wasn't going to be as long as I wanted it to be, and nor was my life in general going to be the way I wanted it to be. You guys can see here, this is some of the psoriasis I had on my leg. On my left leg was before picture about a year ago, and today on that picture, that's probably where I'm at about today. That picture's a day or two old, but you can see that the healing that has begun already just by thinking about certain things, and we're going to talk about that. But so I made up my mind. I knew that the fear of where I was going to be in the future, Jens, was so incredibly big. That fear became bigger than the fear of stepping out of my comfort zone and
Right.
making a change.
And we talked about this last night when we were preparing for the show, which is so many times you're either compelled or you do things on your own. And let's face it, most of us need to be compelled. So,
Right.
so the fear of, oh my gosh, I have these diseases, and if I don't do something now, it's going to get worse, or it's not going to get better at all, or just some other tragedy. But when you start to dig in deep into the topic of healing yourself and just the belief and understanding that each and every one of us, we all have the ability to heal ourselves from emotional pain, from physical pain, from disease, from you name it. But most people don't believe that. So
They don't believe it. And here's what I'm going to tell them about that, because, a lot of people have said that to me on my journey about healing myself. And here's my response to that. Your body knows how to heal. If you don't believe it, just you've all had a cut before. We've all had bruises before. We've all had some kind of accident before, our arm breaks or whatever as a kid. Your body heals itself. There's the
Exactly.
proof you need right there.
right, but for some reason people don't believe that. If you start so I want to go back, because I want to know, at what point did you say, I'm not going to take all this medication that the doctors wanted you to take, and you said, I'm going to heal myself?
Yeah, I think it was at some point they had me on these injections, and the injections were extremely expensive. I don't remember the amount, but $30,000 to $50,000 for a yearly supply of these injections. And I remember just thinking how bad I felt putting that toxin in my body. And I know there's a time and place for medicine. I'm not
Right, of course.
anti-medicine, but my point is that I started feeling, I didn't feel like it was helping me. I felt like it was making me worse. And then they put me on a pain medication, this kind of it wasn't a strong pain medication. It was a pain medication that I could live with on a daily basis, right? It wasn't habit forming. But then I noticed other parts of my body starting to have issues. Like, my intestines were starting to have issues. I started developing ulcers. And I was like, look, I got to make a change, because being on medicine isn't helping me.
No. And that, to your point, there is a place for medicine, and that's when you break your arm,
Right,
and
right,
when
right.
you're having a heart attack, and there's a time
Absolutely.
and a place for medication as well, because medication should be short term. It shouldn't be
Yes.
long term, because long term use of medication, you will start to have side effects.
Yeah, and so really, to answer your question, I watched this show on Netflix. It was a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Joe Cross is the guy, and he went on this journey to do a cleanse. He had some health issues as well, and he went on this journey to do a juice cleanse, and through that journey, he inspired other people to do a cleanse, and he inspired me to do a cleanse. I started doing the cleanses, and I remember doing a 30-day juice cleanse, Jen. I remember the day I made up my mind to do a 30-day juice cleanse. It was evening time, and most of the time we always tell ourselves, we'll start tomorrow.
Oh, right.
I'll start tomorrow.
Yes.
But when you're really serious about it, why are you starting tomorrow? Just start now.
Exactly. But that's one of the ways you are really
Yeah.
serious about something, is when you do start immediately.
Yeah, I didn't say I'm going to wait till tomorrow. I stopped what I was doing right then and there, and I went to the grocery store, and I bought all the ingredients. I had a juicer already. I bought all the ingredients to do the cleanse. I just Googled juice cleanse, right?
Right.
Bought all the ingredients, went home and started juicing.
Okay, so I want to go back also,
Okay.
and we're not going to go deep into this, but what a lot of people don't realize is that disease is often caused by emotional trauma.
Stress, trauma.
Stress, emotional trauma, and you were at a place in your life where you just weren't happy.
Yeah, I was at a place in my life where I had some family issues go on. I was in a marriage, and the marriage just wasn't going where I wanted to be, and I was the one I had to make the difficult decision, because
Right.
listen, either way, the person that makes the decision is still a hard decision. And so
Of
for me, it
course
was
it
like
is.
I had to save my life and had to save her life
Yes.
by going a different direction, because I knew that if I stayed there, both of us, our health was going to deteriorate.
Well, a lot of times what people don't realize, and I say this all the time, just because a situation or a person isn't right for you doesn't mean that person or that situation isn't right for somebody else. It's just not right for you.
Right.
And the sooner you realize that, and the sooner you make a decision to do something differently, you'll get a different result. And a lot of times, I mean, sad to say, relationships become toxic. And because emotional trauma and stress and just negative thoughts and feelings that really start to define your state of being.
Yes.
Because believe me, when you are in a place where you're going to heal yourself, you've got to be in a very positive, grateful, worthy, state of being, and your thoughts create that.
You're absolutely right. And so where I was at, I knew that, again, if I didn't make a change, it was going to affect both of us. And so as much as I, didn't want to feel like I'm giving up, I had to in order to keep my life alive, if you
Right.
will, right? And so I just made up my mind. I made a decision that all my thoughts had led me to where I'm at.
Yes.
Right? All of my thoughts and all of my actions had led me to where I was at that point in my life. And I started doing some research. I started doing some self-development. I started learning about healing, and I started learning your thoughts create your reality. And I started learning about vibration, and I started learning about different stuff. And I found myself, they say all the hard work is right here, James.
100%.
This is all the hard work right here, right?
100%.
Yes.
It all starts in the mind.
Yes.
It all starts in the mind. And, one of the things that we were talking about too is I facilitate a mastermind every month. And look how cool this looks because it's green right here and it goes through the green screen. It's The Subconscious Speaks. And this was a book that we read earlier. And it was a recommendation from one of my mentors, and which is, it's a mentor of yours as well,
Yeah.
Mr. Jeff Olson. And Jeff, we're going to be talking about you a lot today because we love you.
Yes.
And Jeff Olson has inspired so many people all around the world to make a change and make their life better. We're going to talk about how you can find and follow great mentors. But in The Subconscious Speaks, there is, and let me tell you, this was written in the 1900s, like 1930. And this is what I say as well, is there are absolute truths in life. So an absolute truth means it works any time of history. I mean, an absolute truth is an absolute truth. And one of the things I say all the time too is, aren't you excited that the rules of the game don't change? So you might not understand or know what those rules are yet, or maybe you've started to hear the rules, but you don't believe them yet. Well, believe them because they're not going to change, okay? But one of the things he says is there is dormant in each human being a faculty, whether it is developed or not, which will enable that particular individual to succeed if the desire for success is present in his conscious mind. And basically, he talks more about how we all have a switch in our brain. So, why I say this too, if you've seen somebody else heal themselves from disease, if you've seen somebody else become a millionaire, if you've seen somebody else do anything that you want to do, why would you not have within you everything to do the exact same thing?
Yeah.
We all do. Everyone's potential basically is the same.
And I think it's when you see more people heal themselves or you read more stories, some of the books that I read along the journey, I read a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And if you guys
love
if
Joe.
you don't know who Joe is, I mean, he's a doctor that has really shown scientifically how your thoughts create your own reality. And
Well, it's quantum science.
Quantum science, yeah.
Yes, quantum science.
And so now this book, when I picked this book up and I held it in my hand, I knew I was going to be smart, right? Because this book is
looks smart.
It's
Look
a
at
thick
it.
book written by a doctor, and so it was a challenge to get through. But I'm telling you what, I watch a lot of his YouTube videos, a lot of stuff on Dr. Joe Dispenza, and when you start seeing some of the healing that is taking place in this world with people just using their mind and using their thoughts and believing, right? Belief is a key ingredient,
Right.
and when you start seeing that, it's like, wait a minute, I can do that.
Well, and here's what's so crazy too is the placebo effect.
Exactly.
So every drug company has to do a third party blind study, and they always have a placebo effect. And the placebo effect can help. It's on average 80%
I read
of the
that.
people. So 80% of the people that are taking the placebo, whether it's a sugar pill or whether it's saline injections or whatever, which means it's nothing, the average is 80% of the people are healed.
Yeah. Why?
So
Because they believe it. Exactly.
Because they believe
Exactly.
that they are receiving something that is going to heal them.
Yes.
It's the mind.
It is.
And you talk about vibrations and you talk about energy, and I've said this again. This is so cool. I love this because once people start to realize this, you will change your whole entire life. So it's not if you can do it. Yes, you can. You can do it. I promise you, you can. It's just when, like you did, Scott, when are you going to make the decision to just jump all in and do it?
Yeah. And for most people, I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, and we talked a little bit last night. I went to a Tony Robbins event called Unleash the Power Within, where on the first day you go to this event, he has you walk across fire. And and you can Google this on YouTube or whatever. You can Google Oprah Winfrey walks across fire, and you can see the whole thing. And it is absolutely incredible when the fear that you have leading up to that. Well, first of all, Tony spends the whole day getting you in the right mindset, showing that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to, and fear is just false evidence appearing real. It's just an illusion.
Right.
And when you get out there and you walk across that fire and you turn around, for me, something switched in my mind. Like you said, it's a switch. Something switched and said, you know what? If you can do that, what else can you do that you've been holding back on?
Oh yeah. Well, you think about where a quote unquote normal person is in their life.
Yeah.
And most people have so much fear and so much doubt, and they don't think they can do what they want to do. But in reality, you can. And once you accomplish something big that you think you can't do, once you do that one time, you realize that there's nothing you can't accomplish. And that's when the light switch comes on. Like you said, when you walked across that fire and you realized you could do that, that's when your brain, the switch in our brain, once it's turned on, it's not going to go off.
You can't unknow what you know, right?
Exactly.
You can't
You
unlearn
can't
something.
unknow what you know.
Right.
Now, you can have times where you slip back into a doubt,
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons why it's so important to surround yourself with great people.
Exactly.
And you have to change your environment. So if you're hanging out with people that don't believe this and they think you're crazy, well, you know what? They're the crazy one.
Right.
And you got to hang out with other people that are, I say everybody's at least a quarter crazy, Scott. All right.
Okay.
You can't go through this life and not be crazy. In fact, one of Jeff Olson's favorite sayings is he says, you got to be a little crazy to be successful, because you got to be crazy to think you can walk across fire, but you can, and you do. You got to be crazy to think that you can do a podcast and that you can really help people. And this is the thing is, Scott, we met at a company, a network marketing company called Nerium. And now it's Neora, and they've got incredible products. I love them. They're incredible. But Jeff Olson is the founder of that company. And so we meet, and, you were at a place in your life where you were drawn to.
I needed something different.
You were drawn. So this is what I think is so awesome is our journey in our life. So you were drawn, and really because you needed to meet Jeff Olson.
I did.
And tell everybody what that journey through.
Wow. Jeff, he has no idea the impact he's had on my life. I speak on stages, I get up and I talk, and speaking is one of my favorite things to do, coaching, developing, and helping other people. And when I'm talking and I talk about mentors, Jeff is always one of my mentors because, I wasn't a big fan of reading. I wasn't. I went through school, I coasted through school. I mean, I passed, I made good grades, but at the end of the day, reading wasn't my thing. And, Jeff said, hey, just read 10 pages of a good book every day. Just 10, because anybody can do that, right?
Right.
It's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And I thought to myself, he's right. So I picked up a book, and I think I made it through about 3 or 4 pages the first time, fell asleep, right? But it was repetition over and over and over again. And so finally, I made it to that 10 pages, and I felt so proud of myself that I accomplished that, And then before you know it, I started reading a chapter, and then I started reading 2 chapters, and then a book. And then I read somewhere 2 years ago where the average CEO reads 50 to 60 books a year. So I said, you know what? I'm going to see what it's like to be an average CEO. And I ended up reading over 240 books. And now I don't even keep track of the books because it's all about how many hours of self-development am I doing now? Because I do 1,500 hours of self-development a year, which is 4 hours a day.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But one of the things, and I love to read books also. And it's one of the things that if you're in my world, I'm the same way. So, and I like to read books like you watch TV where you have different channels.
Yeah.
So the book that our mastermind is reading is this book right here, Start Late, Finish Rich. It's phenomenal, by David Bach. He's got a ton of amazing books. And then we just finished the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the things that Stephen Covey talks about is in life, most people are making just little changes in their life. And if you make little changes in your life, you're going to get little results.
Right.
So a subtle change is going to result in a subtle result. But if you want quantum changes, you have to make if you want quantum results, you have to make quantum changes. So quantum results, you have got to make quantum changes. And that's what you did when you said, I'm going to read 50 to 60 books in 1 year, and you ended up reading 240.
Yeah, but again, I made changes in every aspect
And is
of
that
my
in
life.
1 year, 240 in 1 year?
1 year.
And that's why,
But now look, you know, I'm probably at a book a day now, Jens, if I
Right.
really sit down to it. I've developed this kind of speed reading.
Right.
But here's the thing, you got to understand. I don't have TV. I
Right.
have a TV in my house, but I don't have cable.
Right.
I don't spend, the average American spends 4 hours watching TV a day.
Right.
Why,
And you
why
are-
am I going to do that? You know, Jeff also, can back up a minute, because Jeff also mentioned something one day. We were at a conference in St. Louis, and we were inside where the football arena was. And Jeff said, all these people on Sunday will have their face painted, and they'll all be rooting for people, multimillionaires, and rooting for them to chase their dreams without doing anything for themselves.
right, exactly.
And that still resonates with me today. Like, it sits with me today. Like, I love football. Don't get me wrong. I love my sports. But as far as sitting there watching 4 hours of TV every day, I didn't do it. I instead picked up a book.
Right. And, you know, and that's the thing is people think you don't have time. We have so much time.
Yeah, you have 'em.
We have so much time. It's just the decisions that you make. What are you doing with that time? I promise you, you could read a book a day. I promise you that you could do.
If you'd have told me that 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you.
Right.
But I tell you, you know, my back was against the wall, so I made the changes on every aspect of my life. I made the changes on my health. I said, you know what, I'm going to do a 30-day juice cleanse. And look, was that easy? Well, I kept telling myself it was easy.
Right.
I would have the weeds pop up in my brain saying that this is hard. I'd have people make fun of me for drinking green juice every day. I'd go into the office and somebody'd be like, oh, you're drinking that slime again. How do you drink that? That's disgusting. But I didn't care what people said. It was about how I felt.
Well,
right?
and that's the important thing right there. You can't care what other people
No,
think.
you can't. And so so after a couple of days, you know, I remember one day I was on day 15 of a 30-day juice cleanse, or maybe day 16, Jens, and I was driving around somewhere and somebody was barbecuing, and I smelt the barbecue, and it was like a hound dog, right? I just wanted a hamburger where the grease dripped down, you know, because I had been on juice for 15 days.
Right.
And so I ended up doing a 30-day juice cleanse, and I never forget the day after my 30-day juice cleanse, I was so proud of myself for doing that. Again, when you have those accomplishments, you feel like you can do anything. So now that just led into another one. That leads into Walking on Fire, which then led into reading 240 books, which then led into everything
Exactly.
else. It created that momentum.
Right, and that's exactly how it happens. It's gradual. You don't go from reading 0 books in 1 month to reading a book a day. It just doesn't happen like that. That's why you start with 10 pages of a good book. And thank you so much, Jeff Olson, for
Yes, thank
for
you.
everything that you've done. And you know, so we meet in Miriam,
Okay.
and we weren't on the same team. If anybody's
No.
been in a network marketing marketing company, you understand that we weren't on the same team, but we lived in the same market. And I was one of the market leaders. And
Right.
so that's why we got to know one another. I started this podcast a little over a year ago, and on every podcast, I will say, if you're watching this and you're somebody that you've got a story, you've got a topic, you've got a subject, if you've got a question, reach out to me. And that's what you did, Scott.
I did. Well, I got tired of waiting on you to reach out to me, Jens.
I didn't know.
No, I'm just playing.
so
Yeah,
I-
I reached
I-
out to you because here's the thing. I saw what you were doing. And I've watched your podcast. I've watched quite a few of them. I saw what you were doing. I always knew what you were doing. I always knew you inspired people. Again, I knew you from the company, and you know, I see who you hang out with, and like energy attracts like energy, right? And I saw the movement you were on, and I said, you know what, I'd love to share my story with Jens and maybe empower some of your listeners, because in my own world, I have my own listeners that I've empowered, and I know that, you know, if you can just get one glimpse of hope, something that, you know, that thinking that you can change it, or he made that change, or you know what, look at him, he did it, I can do it.
Oh, right. It's the ripple effect.
Yes.
It's the ripple effect. And it's one of those things when we first sat down and we started talking before the show, you started to say, I don't think Jeff Olson has any idea the impact that he made on my life. I don't think he knows the impact he's made on my life, the impact that he's made on so many people's lives, and neither do we.
Right.
You know, that's the thing is, I just lost a loved one on September 7th. One of our family members who died by suicide took his life, and you know, I was talking to my dad last week, and my dad said, "You don't know how many people love you. You don't know the impact that you're making on people's lives, and you just got to keep going. You got to keep going, because there will be a hole in our heart and our souls for the rest of eternity because of that decision." But you don't know. You have to keep going. And that's the reason you reached out to me, is because Scott said, Jens, I've healed myself from 3 diseases. And I know I'm just an average Joe, so to speak, that got the right information. And I know if I can do it, anybody else can do it. And let me tell you, I want to know some of the things that you learned during your journey. I want to know when you got off these medications. Like, how long did it take you? Are you an insulin dependent diabetic or no, not whatsoever?
No, I never was insulin dependent. I'm probably, you know, I kind of got scared after they diagnosed me with it and didn't really want to go back and find out if I was insulin dependent or not. You know, the medicine that they were giving me was working at that moment. But, you know, again, I was at an event, and I'll go back to Tony Robbins. I was at his event, and, you know, Tony had a disease, mercury poisoning, and he's been healing himself of that disease, and he told his story, and it inspired me a lot. But on the last day of his event, he brought his doctor out there, okay? And his doctor came out and talked a little bit about a book he wrote called The Plant Paradox. And so in this book, The Plant Paradox, I quickly realized that I need to get that book. Right, because he's up there talking about how he's helping Tony heal himself by using foods.
Is that Dr. Gundry?
Dr. Stephen Gundry. Yes.
I drink
Yes.
some of his Dr.
Oh,
Gundry
do you like
stuff.
the? Do you
Yes.
like the essential reds or
Yes,
something like that? Yes,
I do.
So there's the book right there, The Plant Paradox, and really this book changed my life when it came to eating, because I learned so much about food, and I learned that, you know, some of the food that we eat doesn't want to be eaten.
Right.
It has, you know, it's alive too,
Lectins.
right? It has, right. So you already know it secretes a chemical called lectin that is supposed to make us sick, so we don't eat it anymore.
Right.
The problem is, in America, we eat typically bad, and we don't feel good when we don't eat anyway. So when we eat something like a tomato that's packed full of lectins and it causes inflammation, we don't really know that that's what it is.
Exactly.
And so when you cleanse your body, like I did using his book, I did a cleanse and did my juice cleanse, and then I started adding stuff back into my life, and I could tell what bothered me and what didn't bother me.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things I say all the time, too, is food can heal you or kill you. And it's the truth. The food we eat heals us or kills us, as well as everything else we put in our body or on our body.
Yeah.
And we start to realize that we really are in control. And once you start to realize you're in control, you will change your whole life, because, you know, depression is not it's not a diagnosis, it's a symptom. And like you said, some people can cure the symptom of diabetes once you start to eat better, because really what's wrong is your body is completely out of whack.
Right.
And once you get your body functioning the way it's supposed to function, and your immune system functions the way it's supposed to function, you're a totally different person.
You know, I grew up hearing this, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Right? I don't know if they teach that in schools anymore.
Right.
But we grew up hearing that food was nutrition. And so that's what I learned on this journey. And so you asked me, like, when did I stop taking? Well, you know, they had given me these shots. And so when the last shot I took, I ran out, and I wasn't going to pay another 30 or 50,000, whatever it was. I wasn't going to pay for that again. You know?
How many months from when you were diagnosed at the ER to when you stopped saying, I'm not taking any more medication?
Probably, I want to say 1 year and 3 months.
Okay.
Somewhere along that
Okay,
line.
so you
when I
tried
knocked
it.
everything out.
Okay, all right.
Well, yeah, I tried it because, I mean, that's doctor's order,
Well,
right?
of course.
And so then what happened is I ran out of medicine, and I was like, well, you know, and then I started checking my blood levels every day. I was on I forget the name of the medicine that I was on, but anyway,
Novolog?
I read a regular white pill diabetic medication.
Metformin.
That's what it was. I was on metformin.
Both my parents are diabetic. My mom
they?
is insulin dependent. My dad is not. But
Yeah.
yes, I know.
And so I started decreasing my dosage to see how I felt, because I knew I was putting the right. And now look, I didn't just start doing that without putting some positive
Of course,
energy
you had
into my
to.
body, right?
Of course.
But I started feeling better, and I said, well, I wonder what happens if I start weaning myself off, because I'd already gone into it with the mindset that I was going to heal myself. I'd already started with the mindset of, you know what, I'm healing myself. This wasn't a Band-Aid approach. This wasn't, people kept asking me, oh, how's your diet going? I'm like, this isn't a diet, guys.
Right.
This is a way of life.
I love it that you
This is
answered
a way
it
of
that
life.
way.
This is
Right.
what I would tell them. I would, you know, even now, here I am 2 years later, I still juice. I just came off another 20-day juice cleanse about 3 weeks ago. So
Right.
every year I still do cleanse. I mean, we change the oil in our car every couple of months. Why don't we do that in our own body?
Exactly.
You know? And so anyway, I started coming off the medication, and I started testing myself and seeing where my blood sugar was. And I noticed that my blood sugar was balancing out. Then what would happen is I noticed it would change depending on what I ate.
Yes.
So then I started playing with that, and I wouldn't eat the things that obviously would spike my sugar.
Right.
Like, for example, a banana. If I ate a banana, it would spike my sugar through the roof.
Yes.
And I started learning this stuff. And then I started having the belief that I could heal myself. And that, again, Dr. Joe Dispenza says your body is the best pharmaceutical company in the world.
Absolutely.
You know, and when you start secreting these, chemicals in your brain to the neurotransmitters, that your body, these gratitude chemicals are filling your body full of stuff that help you heal yourself.
Right. So that's what I think sometimes people don't realize. And this is all quantum science. This is all real, but your thoughts create different hormones that your body will start to create. It goes to the pituitary gland. So if you're thinking negative thoughts, you're doubting, you're judging other people, you get offended all the time, all those negative thoughts, those thoughts actually go to the pituitary gland, and in the pituitary gland, your body will create these hormones that it secretes into your body. And the stress and the negativity and holding grudges and not forgiving people and not forgiving yourself and judging people, all those things, they create toxins within your body, and those toxins actually make you sick. And when to the opposite effect, when you think gratitude and you think belief and you think happiness and you are happy and you love people, it goes to the pituitary gland, and it actually is going to secrete hormones into the body that heals your body. And that's what people need to realize, and that's the beauty of it, and it actually changes the makeup of your brain.
It does. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that it wasn't just, you just said it perfectly, it wasn't just the way I ate. Okay, that helped. That played a big role on what I was doing, but it was all on how I thought about it, right? Like you just said, I went into this knowing that I was going to heal myself. I knew that the body could heal itself. The more research I had done, the more I had seen other people heal themselves, it became mental work. Right. And there were times where thoughts would pop in my mind. We all have those thoughts. We all have those negative thoughts. Oh, who are you kidding? Thinking you can heal yourself?
Well,
Scott?
that's one
Come
of
on, man.
yeah. Well, that's some of the I want to go there though, because
we have to.
it's easy for people to listen to us right now and say, oh, they're so positive and happy, good for them, But I want to know, what were some of your self-limiting beliefs? I want to know what were some of your fears, and I want to know when those negative thoughts and those weeds that you referred to them earlier, when would they pop into your head?
Oh, the weeds, man. They're like a garden, right? They pop in every day. So I look at, for me and how I look at it as your brain is the garden, right? And whatever you plant, Jim Rohn talks a lot about planting the right seeds, right? And whatever you plant in your brain, whatever thought you have, you control your thoughts. First of all, if you want to think that, then you can think it. If you don't want to think it, stop thinking it. And so whatever thoughts you have, you can, if you focus on it, I call them weeds. Any negative thoughts that I focus on, those are weeds, and they just, and they grow, and I pull them like a weed in your flower bed, right? I say, oh, that's a negative thought. Get out of here. Like the limiting belief. Scott, you can't do a 30-day juice cleanse. You've never done a 30-day juice cleanse. Are you kidding me? You couldn't go 48 hours without a slice of pizza, man. Come on, It was the food addiction. I had to get over that.
Right.
The sugar addiction. I mean, coming off of sugar was incredibly just, I read an article one time. They said that they tested the brain, and the same part of the brain lit up when someone ate sugar as if when they did the cocaine.
Oh, right. Sugar is so bad for you.
Man.
It is so, so bad for you. It's so addictive, and it really is. But here's the thing: is when you don't eat a lot of sugar, you don't even crave it.
No, once you get off of it,
right?
Though, Jens.
Oh, 100%.
Me getting off of sugar was, man, you guys don't want to be around me when I'm coming off sugar.
No, but it's true. I mean, the sugar, it's addictive. It's so bad for your brain. It's bad for your body, but it's very hard to get off sugar. But then once you do, your body will stop craving that sugar. It won't crave it anymore, which is what you had experienced.
Yeah, and so I was going, I had those limiting beliefs of I'm just as small as, you can't do a 30-day juice cleanse. Whoever thought you could do a 30-day juice cleanse? And I would have to have serious conversations with myself, Jen.
Right.
Like, wait a minute. Didn't Jesus go 40 days and 40 nights without eating. I mean, if he did that, I can do a 30-day juice cleanse. Come on, Scott, you're better than that, right? Like, I have these talks to myself.
Well, and that's what I wanted to know. I like for me, if I'm going to have my negative thoughts, my self-limiting beliefs, and all the weeds that you say, first of all, I think it's important for people to realize that our brain is wired for negativity,
It is.
just like the ground is wired for weeds. So you think about the ground. Weeds are going to pop up. You can't stop that from happening. It's supposed to be that way. It's the natural order of the land. So the natural order of your brain is negativity. You are going to have weeds pop up. You are going to have negative thoughts. So if you're sitting here with some negative thoughts thinking something's wrong with you, no, that's the normal state of your brain. That's the way it's supposed to operate. And I believe that happens because we're not supposed to succeed alone. If you're trying to do it by yourself, you're not going to, it's by design that you aren't going to succeed. So you have to surround yourself by great people.
Yeah, and that's what I did, Jens. You asked me another question, and I surrounded myself, for the last 2 years, really. I surrounded myself with mentors. We talked a little bit about mentors in our first mentor, but I surrounded myself with people who were doing what I wanted to do. Whether that's by reading a book, because if I read a book by someone, it's like having them as a mentor. Maybe
Exactly.
they're, like Dr. Joe Dispenza. I mean, when can I get him as a personal mentor? Me reading his book and watching his YouTube videos and watching some of his stuff, that's a mentor. You talk about Gary Vee, right? Gary Vee's a mentor to you. So, when what I did was, again, I cut myself off from TV, first of all.
Right.
I cut myself off from radio and commercials and the brainwashing of everything, right? And I started reading and educating myself, and I surrounded myself with like-minded people for the last 2 years.
And that's the formula. Yeah. I mean, honestly, that is the formula. The formula is, number one, you have to believe. You have to believe that you were sent here to this earth with the same potential as everyone else that you've seen have massive success in every area of their lives. That is number one. Number two, you've got to cut out the negativity. And whether it's a person, whether it's people, whether it's groups, whether it's TV, whether it's radio, whatever that negativity is. And number three, you've got to make sure that you surround yourself with wonderful, great people, and you got to act. You got to spur into action, and you've got to read. You've got to submerge yourself in personal development and self-development. And again, if you want very active or massive results, you got to have massive changes, and you can literally change your whole life. I mean, that's the formula.
You can, and the beautiful thing is, once you start, it's so much fun, right? You talked about the rules of life earlier. Once you learn the rules, life becomes so much fun.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Oh, totally. And that, like I said, the rules never change.
Right.
The rules never change. They're the same. And a couple things for me personally, anytime I have something negative, it's going to be late at night, because I get up and I just run from the minute I'm up. I'm going. And when you're active and you're doing things, it's hard for negative thoughts to jump into my brain.
Right.
It's when I slow down, and I slow down at nighttime. But a lot of times I'm up, I'm up working. But what I do is, to combat that, is I've got mentors. And, this leads us to our Ask Jens question. So Zach is going to pull up our Ask Jens question, because we've talked about mentors a lot. And this is actually our Ask Jens question, which is, how do people find great mentors? Well, number one, to me, there's two categories. There's live mentors, and then there's virtual mentors. And we've discussed both. Live mentors are people that you know personally, and they could be your parent, they could be your grandparent, they could be people that are associates of yours. And then the virtual mentors are people that you don't know, but they are the people that are out there actively doing. One of the things that you will find, a true leader, is the person and people that you want to hitch your wagon to. And real, true leaders, they come from a place of love. They come from a place of abundance. They want to help other people succeed, because they understand that if we help other people succeed, they're going to go out and help other people succeed as well. They're very free with their information. Two, a good mentor is somebody that inspires you into action. Now, I'm not saying there aren't great mentors, but maybe for you, a great mentor isn't a great mentor for me. You are going to find, though, that there are some great leaders and great mentors that they inspire people to action. Consume all of their content as much as you can on a daily basis, and then do. always be in action. That's where success happens, and that's really where happiness happens, is in action. You know, one of the things that we talked about with is gratitude.
Yes.
And the attitude of gratitude and getting into the habit of attitude. And this is how it will manifest to me within my life a lot of
Okay.
times. You know, people have to realize that the way our mind works and the way our subconscious mind works is when you associate extreme emotion to an intent, whether that intent is a good intent or a bad intent, it's more likely to happen.
Right.
So gratitude, it helps spur just great emotion and energy. And when you associate that with something, that means it's going to come to fruition, and it will. But, you know, my husband, we've been married for 13 years, and you know my husband,
Dave,
Dave.
yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, and I'm very honest, it's our second marriage. We blended families. I had 3 biological kids. He had 2. Now I have 2 bonus kids. They're amazing. But it was hard. It was very hard and difficult. And, you know, his philosophy in life was a little bit different than mine. Now it's more similar, but you know, we would get into these arguments, and he would be so mad and upset about something, and I just said, I just can't not be grateful. You know, he would get mad sometimes because I wasn't great. I was grateful, but I said, I can't not be grateful. I can't not be appreciative for what I have. And if we're in a fight, who cares? We're in a fight, but we're not going to be in a fight forever.
Right.
You know, if we disagree on something, okay, we disagree about it, but it's not the end of the world. We're not going to disagree forever. You just have to always remember, we have to be grateful. We have to be grateful for our obstacles. We have to be grateful for our hard times. We have to, because that's usually when you learn the most too.
It is. And
If you wouldn't have gotten those 3 diseases, Scott,
Yeah.
would you be sitting here where
Probably
you
not.
are with
Probably
this knowledge and with this, you know, turned on that's what turned on the switch.
But let's bring that even deeper, because you're right. Without knowing all that, without having those diseases, I wouldn't have learned what I learned. But you know, without that, I would have never healed myself, right? So, you know, it's kind of an oxymoron there, right? And so I agree with you. Gratitude is, you know, every day, even now, every day I wake up and I spend at least 30 to 45 minutes in gratitude, in a state of gratitude. I don't grab my phone when I wake up in the morning. I don't check emails. I wake up in the morning and I instantly put myself in a state of gratitude. And I walk around, I do it a lot still, but even before, I would walk around consistently saying, thank you for my healing.
Yes.
I wasn't healed yet, but I knew I was going to become healed, and I would just already live as if I'm healed. Thank you so much for my healing. And I would move on, and I would just, anytime a weed popped up, like, oh, you know, you can't heal yourself. Why do you think you can do that? I would say, that's a weed, be gone. I'm not going to think that way. Thank you for my healing. And I would start then focusing on what it is I wanted, not what it is I don't want.
Right. You know, and we're about out of time, but I'm going to say one more thing about the negative thoughts and the weeds. To even, you know, our brain is wired to keep us safe. And that's really what that negativity is it's trying to keep you safe. So to even say, thank you so much, brain, for wanting to keep me safe, but I've got this. I've got this. And so I don't need this, and pluck it out of your head.
Yeah.
And be grateful for those thoughts, because that's really what it is. It's just trying to keep you safe. But we don't live in that world anymore. So, I mean, honestly, you could tell Scott and I, we could talk forever.
we could, yeah.
And listen, we're going to.
We can have a podcast series.
We're gonna talk some more, because I think this is just so vitally important.
Yes.
And we just thank you for joining us, whether it's live or on recording. And please subscribe to the Jens Johnson YouTube channel. And if you are like Scott, you're out there, you know someone, or it might be you personally, that, you know, your story could help change people's lives, please reach out to me. Jens at jensjohnson.com, Jens with a G. And please join us next Monday at 2 p.m. Central. And until we meet again, be big, be bold, and most importantly, be you. Bye.